Greetings, fellow humans. Katrina here. Quick disclaimer, I'm a professional, not your professional. Nothing I'm about to say should be taken as medical, legal, or otherwise advice. This podcast is purely for education and amusement. That is it. Disclaimer over. So today I thought I'd talk about something I don't know a whole lot about, but I know where to find it in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and that is intermittent explosive disorder. So IED. It's going to be 312.34, or if we're looking at that ICD-10, that's the more medical for doctors book, that's F63.81. So I wanted to go through like the diagnostic criteria, a little bit of the diagnostic features, and then prevalence and a little bit of development and course. So that's kind of what the section broken down in. Oh, it's on page 466 of the DSM-5, not the DSM-5 TR. I don't have that one yet. So there's A through F, and A says recurrent behavioral outbursts representing a failure to control aggressive impulses as manifested by either of the following. And so it doesn't have to be both of these, but it can be either. The first one is verbal aggression, for example, temper tantrums, tirades, verbal arguments, or just fighting, or physical aggression towards property, animals, or other individuals occurring twice weekly on average for a period of 3 months. The physical aggression does not result in damage or destruction of property and does not result in physical injury to animals or other individuals. That's a different issue. So the second one under A says 3 behavioral outbursts involving damage or destruction of property and or physical assault involving physical injury against animals or other individuals occurring within a 12-month period. So you see the big difference there, and it can be either one of those. So B says the magnitude of aggressiveness expressed during the recurrent outbursts is grossly out of proportion to the provocation or to any precipitating psychosocial stressors. And C says the recurrent aggressive outbursts are not premeditated. So for example, they are impulsive and or anger-based and are not committed to achieve some tangible objective. For example, money, power, intimidation, that kind of thing. D says the recurrent aggressive outbursts cause either marked distress in the individual or impairment in occupational or interpersonal functioning, or are associated with financial or legal consequences. So there can be consequences to this. E says chronological age is at least 6 years or equivalent developmental level. F says the recurrent aggressive outbursts are not better explained by another mental disorder. So there can be other things that include anger stuff, but maybe not to the extent that this says. And so examples of that include major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, a psychotic disorder, antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder. So I know I went through those fast, but if you want to hear it again, just rewind. And then it says it's also one that is not attributable to another medical condition. So those medical conditions can be head trauma, Alzheimer's, or something else, or to the physiological effects of a substance. Okay, so that's going to be a drug of abuse, a medication. And for children ages 6 to 18 years, aggressive behavior that occurs as part of an adjustment disorder should not be considered for this diagnosis. And if I remember off the top of my head, adjustment disorder, the stressor has to have happened within the last 3 months. Don't quote me on that, though. I don't know for sure. Now, there is a note at the bottom of the diagnostic criteria, and it says this diagnosis can be made in addition to the diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, or autism spectrum disorder, when recurrent impulsive aggressive outbursts are in excess of those usually seen in these disorders and warrant independent clinical attention. So you would then focus directly on the aggressive behaviors in treatment. So the diagnostic features, it says, the impulsive or anger-based aggressive outbursts in intermittent explosive disorder have a rapid onset and typically little or no prodromal period. Outbursts typically last for less than 30 minutes and commonly occur in response to a minor provocation by a close intimate or associate. Individuals with intermittent explosive disorder often have less severe episodes of verbal and/or non-damaging, non-destructive, or non-injurious physical assault. That's criteria A1. And in between more severe destructive assaultive episodes, that's the criteria A2. So criteria A1 defines the frequent, so that's like twice weekly on average for a period of 3 months, aggressive outbursts characterized by temper tantrums, tirades, verbal arguments or fights, or assault without damage. I realize that this is almost verbatim the diagnostic criteria. They've just rearranged it into the features section, but I'll keep going. So criterion A2 defines infrequent, so that's 3 in a 1 year period. That's a good example of that. Impulsive aggressive outbursts characterized by damaging or destroying an object regardless of its tangible value. So it doesn't matter if you got it at the dollar store. Or by assaulting, striking, or otherwise causing physical injury to an animal or another individual. Regardless of the nature of the impulsive aggressive outburst, the core feature of IED is failure to control impulsive aggressive behavior in response to subjectively experienced provocation. So that could be like a psychosocial stressor that would not typically result in an aggressive outburst. That's criterion B. The aggressive outbursts are generally impulsive and/or anger-based, but rather than premeditated or instrumental, and are associated with significant distress or impairment in psychosocial function. So that significant distress or impairment is a key feature in a lot of different diagnoses, just throwing that out there. A diagnosis of IED should not be given to individuals younger than 6 years or the equivalent developmental level, or to individuals whose aggressive outbursts are better explained by another mental disorder. A diagnosis of IED should not be given to individuals with disruptive mood dysregulation disorder or to individuals whose impulsive aggressive outbursts are attributable to another medical condition or to the psychological effects of a substance. Remember, I mentioned the drugs before. In addition, children ages 6 to 18 years should not receive this diagnosis when impulsive aggressive outbursts occur in the context of an adjustment disorder. Like I said, that adjustment disorder is more something that's happened in the short term, not too distant past. So there are actually associated features supporting the diagnosis. So mood disorders that are unipolar, anxiety disorders, and substance use disorders are associated with IED, although onset of these disorders is typically later than that of the intermittent explosive disorder. Oh, and IED is intermittent explosive disorder. I think I've been using those interchangeably. So the prevalence of this, that's going to be 1 year prevalence data for IED in the United States is about 2.7%. That's a narrow definition. Intermittent explosive disorder is more prevalent among younger individuals. So for example, that's going to be younger than 35 to 40 years old, compared with older individuals, older than 50 years, and individuals with a high school education or less. So, excuse me. I'm sure that was interesting experience to hear in the ears. There's also culture-related diagnostic issues, gender-related diagnostic issues. For the gender one, it says in some studies, the prevalence of IED is greater in males than in females. And other studies have found no gender difference. So that's an interesting that there's studies on both sides of it. So it is an interesting diagnosis. And if you know anyone with this, don't judge them for it, because it's something we don't choose to have, but something that occurs in nature, and humans are part of nature. So don't judge. All right. So if you enjoyed today's episode and you want to contribute, you can click the button on the website. And remember, I really appreciate each and every one of you simply for existing.